If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This episode is brought to you by Dogfish Head Craft Brewery. The Grateful Dead and Dogfish Head have gotten the band back together with the release of Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale, a light-bodied pale ale brewed with sustainable Kernza grains, granola, and heaps of good karma for a refreshing brew that's music to your taste buds. Available nationwide, visit dogfish.com to find Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale in your neck of the woods. Dogfish Head Craft Brewery is located in Milton, Delaware. Please drink responsibly.
The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
5 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to another exciting edition, as you tell us, of the Dr. Sky Experience. Proudly here on Talk Radio 77 WABC. If you'd like to email me, I certainly pay attention to those, and I thank you ahead of time. That's where we get many guest suggestions. And in this particular iteration of the Dr. Sky Experience, you will hear, by popular demand from you, the listening audience, a repeat performance, and I hope it happens many times, of a special guest we'll introduce in his entirety, Patrick Wood of Technocracy.news. But ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to email me, it's simple. It's just DRSKY, of course, at WABCRadio.com. And to listen to this particular podcast archive and all the great hosts here on Talk Radio 77 WABC, simply go to WABCRadio.com or the alternate, RedAppleAudioNetworks.com. Always thanking them for their help in making sure that this signal reaches you across the nation, around the world, and I'm even sure from the subject matter that we talk about, way out into the universe. A big shout out to Tony and Bill, our helmsmen, as we like to call them, as they navigate this powerhouse signal, 77 WABC, to you, to yours, and those, of course, around the nation, the world, and even maybe out into the universe. As we continue, ladies and gentlemen, with topics from usually the subject of astronomy, space, aviation, weather, American exceptionalism, celebrity guests, etc., etc. We do our best to add some intellectual spice to your weekends and hope that your weekend is well underway in a happy way. But on the other side of the coin, people are concerned about a topic. The topic is many. There are many of them. Technocracy, transhumanism, the big reset, and globalism. And if you're a new listener to this radio station, we implore you to give us a call. And to everybody else out there, we love dialogue. The number, 1-800-848-9222. That's 1-800-848-9222. Ladies and gentlemen, 3 things that we all know about that mankind is seeking. From the beginning of the dawn of mankind, freedom, prosperity, and peace. As many know, today, President Trump and Vladimir Putin of Russia getting together to try to stop, and at least from the president's perspective, more so, to stop this horrific war in, of course, the Ukraine. The loss of lives, the loss of lots of things, but ladies and gentlemen, that's for another subject at another time. But it could blend very well to the subject of technocracy, transhumanism, the big reset, and globalism. And to set the stage for our 2-hour program with our special guest, Patrick Wood, I'd like to quote from a recent article in the Epoch Times, the front of their opinion page, right here, a title of an article I should read, "The Real Bandwidth Crisis, How Modern Life is Breaking the Human Mind." This article by one of their reporters, Kay Rubisek. And to give a summary so we move on with the topics at hand, the article synthesis is this. Contrary to what some assume, the total number of hours Americans spend consuming media each day has not changed drastically over the past 15 years. In 2008, researchers at the University of California, San Diego estimated that the average American consumed roughly 11 hours of information per day. Today, depending on the study, that figure ranges from 11.5 to 13 hours. In terms of time alone, the difference appears minimal, but time is not the issue. The crisis lies in the intensity, that is, of what we consume. In 2008, those 12 hours were largely passive. People watched television, listened to music, read the newspaper, or browsed early websites. It was predictable. linear media, and manageable human terms. Now, these same 12 hours are filled with high-frequency, high-velocity content delivered through screens we carry in our pockets. Every scroll brings a new decision, every swipe a new emotional hit, and every alert an interruption demanding response. We are constantly toggling between tasks, apps, platforms, and conversations without a rest or pause. Cognitive scientists refer this as cognitive load, the mental effort required to process information. Here to talk about that is a very special individual that we've had here on this radio show, and by popular demand he returns, but a brief bio is in order. Patrick Wood is a leading and critical expert on sustainable development, green economy, Agenda 21 and 2030, and historic technocracy. He's the author of Technocracy, The Hard Road to World Order, Technocracy Rising, the Trojan Horse of Global Transformation, and co-author of Trilateralists, over Washington. Wood remains a leading expert on the elitist Trilateral Commission, their policies and achievements in creating their self-proclaimed new international economic order, which is in essence of sustainable development on a global scale. With that, we welcome back proudly Patrick Wood. Good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having me back on again, Steve.
Well, Patrick, there's so much to talk about here, and I want to remind everybody the contact number for dialogue. We love that at the 4 Types of Conversation. Feel free, ladies and gentlemen, to chime in on whether you feel that we're even telling an exaggerative story here, and I believe our guest is certainly not, and we don't try to do that for alarmism or anything but report facts and figures, and he does a great job in that. The number 1-800-848-9222. But before we go to the callers, let's set the stage, Patrick. What are some of the big issues, since we've had you on last, that most people should be concerned about there, and they can follow you at technocracy.news. Please continue.
Wow. Well, there's a lot of talk, I think, and experience that some people at least are losing touch with reality altogether. This is described as a symptom. Psychologists would call that psychosis. That's just a symptom. It doesn't mean you have a diagnosis per se. But when a person gets separated from reality, they have no horizon anymore. They can't tell what's real, what's not real, and it really flips them out into another world. This is a very, very dangerous situation for anybody individually. But when you consider on a society-wide basis, this is such a dangerous thing where more and more people are getting into this condition where they lose touch with reality. This is, by and large, the result of what you just talked about with this Epoch Times article.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's interesting. I mean, many people know of this particular newspaper. There's varied opinions about it. Again, pro-America, anti-communist Chinese party, and their whole mantra that they write about. But putting that aside, ladies and gentlemen, keeping our minds open, you're right. That's an interesting article, and the title of that is The Real Bandwidth Crisis, How Modern Life is Breaking the Human Mind. I mean, this is really serious. And again, look, I have a cell phone. I have other means of communication. We're doing this in the digital world here on this particular radio archive. We're not anti-technology. We're not going to go back to the Stone Age. But, Patrick, it's becoming a real serious issue. And you brought up something. You and I have many conversations offline to build this show to the best we can, and we hope that the audience does appreciate it. And we'd love to hear from them in these particular subjects. How is it affecting each and every individual? Do they care? Et cetera, et cetera. But here, you were describing something about now, a warning to parents with children or anybody out there. You can warn yourself, but you got to hear the warning before you can follow the advice. Tell us about this with children, certain things that are coming up in the AI world that, well, in just the whole digital world that may be concerning to parents and others.
Well, for one thing, this new class of apps that is being released in the blogosphere or whatever on smartphones, they're called companion apps, and they're mostly targeted to young people. Certainly, some older people as well are taking them up on it, but mostly it's targeted to young people. What a companion app does is it gives you a friend, an avatar, an AI chatbot, if you will, on your phone, your device, your computer, whatever, where you can get advice and you can talk to this avatar anytime you want, day or night. You can ask any question you want, and it'll give you answers. You may not like them, but nevertheless, they're sometimes nonsensical. But
yes.
But what's happening with these apps? They're exploding all over the world. There's at least 350 of these companion apps in existence right now. One companion app that I followed. It was released on one day, like say it was on Monday or whatever. By Wednesday, it had over 30,000 downloads and users sucking the data off this companion app.
Yes.
This shows you this going wild, and the younger audience especially. This is so dangerous. This is absolutely the worst thing that a parent could do.
Yes, but run us through this, Patrick. In other words, if I'm a child or I'm a parent and I try this, what's the interaction? Go from the child side or the person who's on this side of the phone. You're asking it questions, and what's so nefarious about it that I can understand, that the audience can understand? What's it telling us to do, or just give us an idea?
Well, for one thing, the complaint that you hear from young people, well, when I want to talk, there's nobody there to talk to me, like my parents, for instance.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's the parent's job to instruct their kids how to live and how to take a bully and to take whatever relationship with the opposite sex, that sort of thing. That's the parent's job, not the job of a machine like AI, and it's just a machine. It's not sentient in any way, although some people who are using these apps, they think their AI has become sentient to them. That's a different subject, but that's very disturbing as well. So what AI can do at this point can fill their heads full of nonsense, not necessarily what the parent wants them to hear, but what the AI wants to tell them to keep them hooked, if you will, on the app.
Right.
That's the object of these apps.
So I imagine, Patrick, that there's a charge for this. Nothing's free out there. So in other words, in many cases, this is not obviously a free thing. You have to go out and sign up. So that would be what? That a child doesn't normally go to do that. That would have to have been the parent to instill the card, the credit card, or what have you. Am I following this correctly? Or is this a free thing in many cases? I don't know.
Some are free, some are not free. So far, the apps are the ones that charge are pretty inexpensive. But the ones that are free, they're just as effective, but they're harvesting information from the kids and whoever is using it to train their AI algorithm further down the road.
Wow.
So they get data in return for you using the app.
Well, does that bother you, ladies and gentlemen, across the nation and the world? I mean, this is alarming what Patrick brings up here. Again, if you're just joining us, the big subjects that we talk about with Patrick Wood are technocracy, which he'll define later, transhumanism, the thing called the Big Reset, and the whole concept, which I'm sure everybody within the sound of my voice and his, we've heard of globalism. But this is interesting, Patrick, and you're right, extremely dangerous because, you know, if a parent is not watching their child, look at the other nefarious things that they can go and look at, from pornography to all these other things that are not necessarily under anybody's control. But let's stick to the subject, which I think is fascinating here. I didn't realize this. I mean, so in essence, they can go out there and just have this little pal or little friend or a big friend, whatever, that has alarm bells that are lighting up in my mind, and I'm sure many other people out there. It's incredible.
I would think. You know, I had an imaginary friend, I think, when I was a young kid, you know, maybe 6 years old. And my friend was all in my mind. I didn't have any outside input. I just imagined what my friend would say or what it was like, whatever. And that was a lot of kids have that experience. But this is altogether different because the source of your imaginary friend is an AI that's weaponized against you to collect data from you in order to train the AI that's addressing you to get you more hooked and more hooked on the app in the first place. So this is a very dangerous thing. It's not like the innocence of having an imaginary friend. This is nothing even close to that.
Well, Patrick Wood is our guest, ladies and gentlemen, 1-800-848-9222, talking, that is, about many subjects that should be of concern. But more importantly than what we're saying is what the ladies and gentlemen in the world are saying. And that's why we ask you, if you have questions in the form of comment, dialogue, 1-800-848-9222. Let's now move on to a even larger issue that many people that are very religious or have some religious beliefs out there, no matter what religious beliefs they have, obviously they're entitled to those. But let's talk about the other issue that you bring up. Talk about this one, about AI relating to Jesus.
Oh, boy. There's a bunch of apps on the market now. They just were released recently. The sense of these apps is you can speak to Jesus Christ yourself on your smartphone, and people are eating this up again. They can't discern that isn't really Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. But the companies that are putting this out, they're all commercial companies, and they have no relation to spirituality at all. They don't, even the Bible, no pastors, no church sponsorship, stuff like that. These companies that are doing this have names like Supreme Chaos. How's this one? All Stars Productions. How about this one? Catloaf Software. You gotta be kidding! But they're tricking people into thinking that they can actually talk to Jesus on this phone through this app.
Well, I mean, look, not to knock anybody out there, whatever their religious beliefs are, that's awesome. Have the freedom to do that here in America, and hopefully, well, not everywhere in the world. But more to the point, this is interesting. I mean, you and I wouldn't fall for that, but I wonder, right, there must be a lot of people that fall for that. And of course, it's a revenue generator, I'm sure, for many, correct?
It is, yes, exactly. And so, this kind of an app is kind of taking the internet by storm at this point. Maybe people will get tired of it after a while and figure out they're not really talking to Jesus after all. Right. But when they get a really screwball answer, they might wise up. But at this point, a lot of people can't perceive that it's not Jesus they're talking to. It sounds like him, when they get an answer. But here's the thing about this. It sets up a circular loop where the more you talk to ask questions to Jesus, the AI will take your answers and feed them back to you, reworded. But this is how they're getting their doctrines on Jesus from you yourself. And in other words, there's no outside input from pastors or church people, whatever. It's taking the information from you real time, rehashing it, and giving it back to you. And this is how they're building their app. It's self-training, in other words. It's absolutely insane.
It is. I mean, I would agree with you, but I wonder more importantly what the listeners around the nation and the world think. And that's why we have shows like this where dialogue, of course, comes into this particular conversation, one of the 4 parts of conversation. We enjoy a two-way conversation with individuals out there on these very subjects. I've said it many times, and I'm proud to say it, because as we like to do this, I say, and I'm saying this humbly, we like to add somewhat intellectual spice to the weekends that go on here to talk about not only the great mysteries of the universe, but here on planet number 3, where we all seemingly can't get along, Patrick Wood, you have lots to say about these subjects, but in a few moments, we'll be going to the break at the bottom of the hour in a little bit. But we still have time. Just in case people who've never heard this particular, iteration of what we talk about here. Describe to us, so we understand this in a better world and a better way. Describe technocracy to people in the shortest but most definitive way you can. This is something interesting.
Well, I will. Technocracy was invented in 1932 as an economic system, not a political system. And this is how they define themselves in their own publications. This is a direct quote. Technocracy is the science of social engineering, and that should make your hair on fire right away.
It's already. I have the fire extinguisher right near my head. Yeah, go ahead.
The scientific operation of the entire social mechanism to produce and distribute goods and services to the entire population. For the first time in human history, it will be done as a scientific, technical, engineering problem. And then the definition goes on. It says there will be no place for politics, politicians, finance or financiers. Technocracy will distribute by means of a certificate of distribution available to every citizen from birth to death.
Wow.
That's the end.
That's a powerful statement that nobody could argue with, I'm sure. And if they did, we'd love to hear that rebuttal or argument back and forth in a good way, of course, that we try here. But here's something else. You mentioned to us on this radio show the most alarming thing that I've ever heard you say. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I've followed Patrick for many, many, many years. He's not only an individual that knows his stuff at technocracy.news. We've known each other for many, many years. And ladies and gentlemen, if you ever have an opportunity to go to one of his seminar programs, I think you'll learn, obviously, much more than 2 hours give, but we do the best. You mentioned something, and here's a quote, and I hope I have it right. In the future, under this whole concept of technocracy, you will own nothing and you will be happy. Now that to me says a lot, and I don't know how happy I would be. I'm not overly involved in wanting possessions. You know, I'm not off the charts, I don't think. And I don't think many people are. That's a crazy statement that somehow, how do you become happy like that? Where's the brainwash?
You won't be happy. This is a gaslight operation
right.
for sure.
Right.
But this statement was originated at the World Economic Forum with Klaus Schwab, in fact, and he was crowing about basically society's going to be flipped away from an ownership society to a renter society. In other words, you'll rent everything you have to use, maybe a house, maybe a car, or whatever.
Sure.
You won't own it, but you'll rent whatever you have to use in your life. This is very, very disturbing because basically it wipes out property rights for people. And
wow, Patrick,
property rights, our whole system falls apart.
No, you're absolutely right. And if people are looking for interest rates to come down, that's a whole nother subject for not my expertise at all. But the reality is, even here in Arizona, Phoenix, you look all over the country, you see so many of these locations where land was, where people had 2 or 3 acres, and they earned it. They bought it. And now we see stack and pack apartment buildings in which they charge some outrageous rents. And I was just hearing during the news segment here before we started our program this morning that average rents, let's say in the New York metro area and in other areas, we're talking New York metro, $4,000 per month, and in other areas maybe a little bit less, and in all locations around the country. You're right. The sustainability thing is taking away the incentive or the ability for people to own. So what do? We have to rent. And we'll be happy.
That's right.
Is that how you say it?
That's right. Yep. That's what they say. Mm-hmm.
Yep. 1-800-848-9222. Ladies and gentlemen, you can get in on the conversation. Does any of this disturb you at all? Does any of this bother you? And again, we don't want to be negative here. I mean, we're trying to bring together a collection, no apology, the greatest guests in all these particular realms, from when we talk space and science, which we will, of course, in majority of our programs here on the Dr. Sky Experience. But there's so much to talk about. That's why I'm these subjects, because, Patrick, this is amazing. And then we go to the thing which I'll define here because I'm reading it. Transhumanism is a philosophical and intellectual movement that advocates the enhancement of the human condition by developing and making widely available new and future technologies that can greatly enhance longevity, cognition, and well-being. Sounds nice on the surface, maybe. But, Patrick, in less than a minute or so, tell us, that's not a really good thing either, in your opinion.
Well, I don't think I want to live forever on this planet for sure. But
that's right.
When these transhumanists, when they decided that the death was just like a disease, something to be cured, well, that set them off on a tangent. I believe they'll never achieve it, but they think they can. So if they can conquer death, why that would be their holy grail, if you will.
That's incredible. And we find out that I know here in Arizona there happens to be a company, I'm not going to name them, But I guess Ted Williams, the baseball player, they have actually taken his frozen head and other bodies of people who don't want their identification known, IDs revealed, that in the future they can someday, and I'll describe it very simply in a very basic way, they'll be thawed out, and hopefully the technocracy or the technology of the day will give them everlasting life. Who knows? Maybe some sort of a symbiotic robot or something like that. But Patrick, we've reached the bottom of the hour. The Heartbreak in Radio continues. Patrick Wood, ladies and gentlemen, technocracy.news. Your questions and comments to 1-800-848-9222. Does any of this disturb you? And how do you react to it, ladies and gentlemen? Much more when we come back here on the Dr. Sky Experience.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I'm Dr. Edgar Mitchell, Apollo 14 astronaut. I flew to the moon in 1971 to the Frommer area on Apollo 14 with Commander Alan Shepard, who was our commander, Stuart Roosa, who was our command module pilot, and I was the lunar module pilot in February the 5th, 1971. And you're listening to the Dr. Sky Show.
A tribute to Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man to walk on the moon, and a good friend who's passed on to the infinite. He mentioned to me at once when they were on the surface of the moon with Alan Shepard, the first American in space. I asked him if he ever got to look at the Earth from the surface of the moon, and he said, for all time, remind everyone that the full Earth is 4 times the size of the biggest full moon you've ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, at 34 minutes after the hour, we continue. Here is a Latin phrase, tribulatio ditat. It means simply this: troubles make us stronger. So if you think there's any negativity in talking about these subjects, just remember, tribulatio ditat. Troubles make us stronger. We continue with Patrick Wood. Interesting, Patrick. So many subjects to talk about, but always let's go and honor the callers that call this particular show and this great radio station. Let's say good morning to Frank in the state of Maine. Good morning, Frank. You're on with Patrick Wood. How are you?
Good morning, Dr. Sky. Always a pleasure. And
likewise.
And Mr. Woods, great interpretation of everything. I think it's very weird that the media has embraced transhumanism as something that we all should embrace. I remember when when Time Magazine had Google was going to cure death. I remember that.
Yeah, so I heard that too.
That was very weird. But my question is, hopefully my question makes a lot of sense. Thinking about what you were saying, I'm looking at, again, the media that puts it into our heads that AI is going to solve all our problems, and that this longevity of life is going to be the catalyst that makes us stronger, and this curing death, and giving us every pill or every ailment has a cure. My question is, are we going toward a society where everything, where they're targeting people to have an acceptance of transhumanism? In other words,
you bring up some good points.
I think you're right. The media has done a great job of promoting transhumanism everywhere that you look. And you could ask the question, well, who wants to die? Well, nobody's going to say, I want to die right now, but maybe somebody will say it, but, not normally for sure. But this is an easy thing for the media to pick up on. And of course, the transhumanists themselves, the scientists, the genetic scientists, and like that, they're all eager to get the press on board with them. And so if they certainly they'll feed them stories and they'll take them all out of context, and then somebody say, "Oh, we're just on the verge now of conquering death," and then it doesn't happen. So
exactly. No, that's interesting. Frank, you get the response, and we'll move on. You have an opportunity to come back. And what's your thoughts? What's your final thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I'm like I said again, it's hard to wrap my head around it, considering that most people know, if they're going to die, and people don't want to die right away and whatever. But at the end of the day, it's a part of life, and we got to accept that. But if the media continues to push that, if you take this drug, like they push on the TV, if you take this drug and you're going to live for another 10 years, then all of a sudden you start thinking, well, maybe I can live to 140, 150.
Right, but again, Frank, listen to the side effects. It's not to be funny here, right, Patrick?
No,
you
I
watch
agree.
and see these television commercials, and they have 1,000. There's a plethora of warnings, which I won't go into because some of them are rather nasty. What would happen? But Frank, always appreciate you. And how's the state of Maine up there? Is it nice and quiet and pretty cool?
It is. Ever since I moved away from New York City and I moved up here because of my son, I have experienced nothing but peacefulness and nothing. I mean, the politics up here is a little harsh, but other than the politics of it, I look at the nature of it, and the nature is beautiful. And Arcadia National Park is beautiful.
Yes.
Baxter State Park is beautiful. The majority of the state, which, by the way, I have not explored the northwestern part of the state, but other parts of this state is a natural wonderland. So it brought my blood pressure down. Let me put it to you that way.
Well, Frank, maybe Patrick and I will make a surprise visit up there. That would be nice. Get away from
the game.
Yeah.
See, I'm dealing with 110 degrees, and so is Patrick. But anyway, Frank, thanks for being part of the Dr. Sky experience. You're always welcome here in this house, and I appreciate you. Let's continue, ladies and gentlemen. The phone lines are lighting up. Always a popular guest. All of our guests are popular. But again, we go now and spend time with Patrick Wood. Let's say good morning to Frank in Astoria. Frank, good morning. You're on the Dr. Sky experience with... Oh, okay. Let's say good morning to, what is it? Melbourne from Indiana. Melvin, excuse me. I'm sorry I couldn't hear that one.
Yes. Dr. Sky?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever seen a movie called Forbidden Planet?
I have. I knew the actor very well. I knew Leslie Nielsen. And I actually met, and I actually had to talk with Anne Francis, the wonderful classic actors and actresses.
That's what I think about artificial intelligence.
Yes.
It wiped out the entire civilization.
You're 100% right. And that's a movie. I was born in 1956. Everybody can speak for themselves. Patrick, you were born when, may I ask?
Well, a little before you, for sure.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, it's Melvin, right? Go ahead.
I'm Melvin.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I got the wrong information. Go ahead.
I was born in 1949.
Yes, sir.
Now, that movie, in a way, was a little similar to Space Odyssey 2020, when HAL, the computer, decided it could operate the mission without the people.
Right. And I happen to have right near my desk here Robbie the Robot. And, you bring up something interesting. I know it's kind of like along the same lines. We're talking science fiction. But the funniest guy I ever met, and of course, Leslie Nielsen, he was just amazing. I met him. Get a load of this, folks, and Melvin, you'll find this funny. I'm in a store, Costco, shopping a long time ago in Phoenix, and I was rushing around to get things because I had to be somewhere, which isn't my fault. So I, smashed my cart into this guy, and I looked at it, not hard, but I hit the cart and I go, "Excuse me," and he goes, "Well, excuse me," and I looked up and I said, "Wait a minute, that's Frank Drebin from, the police thing," and then the airplane movie, and it was him. And he and I were talking, and we got to interview him. But going back to Melvin, what you're saying, that's a movie, if you had any homework to issue out there, you're so right. That talks about the exact story about AI in 1956.
Wow.
That's when it came out. I got the poster from it.
I got it on Laserdisc.
My brother-in-law makes movies. and he gave me the poster for with Nelson for the Forbidden Planet. Robbie, that robot,
Yes.
He's been in about 6 movies.
He sure has. And he was actually a fight. Now we're way off subject, but hey, I love this subject, don't you, Patrick? This is awesome. We're talking sci-fi trivia, but it's so cool. If you look at some of the
absolutely.
Yeah, if you look at the Lost in Space episodes, go to Google, ladies and gentlemen, you can see an actual argument between Robbie the robot, who wasn't called Robbie, and the regular, B2 robot, or the B4, whatever they called it, the one on Lost in Space. And they're arguing, and it's hilarious because it was done in a way that shows which robot supposedly was more powerful. But we'll leave that to the winds of change there. Melvin, that's great, my friend. I appreciate you. Thanks for joining us. Patrick, this is a fascinating subject. I may bring up the little robot here and let him play on the air some of the things he talks about here in the next segment. But no, that's fascinating. But the whole thing, when we come back, let's do this. Let's talk more about this whole AI situation. And another article that I want to go to, and I'll brief everybody on it, and we'll talk about it. It's another article from Epoch Times in their Mind and Body section, the August 8th and 12th edition. The title is The Cognitive Debt We Accumulate Every Time We Use AI. And we'll leave it at that because it's amazing. Look, I'm not anti-AI. I don't think you're anti-AI. That would be putting words in your mouth. But the reality is there's also a dark side to this that people need to understand, correct?
Exactly.
Big time.
Exactly so.
Right.
Yeah.
We got less than a minute, so tell us. I know we'll come
Okay, well, we're going to talk about AI as if it was not intelligent, because I believe it's an oxymoron every time we say AI, artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. It's just a machine. That's all it is. It's a very intelligent machine, but it's just a machine at the end of the day.
More with our special guest, Patrick Wood, and you, ladies and gentlemen. If you'd like to join us in the conversation, we love dialogue, 1-800-848-9222, as we go off into space with great callers like yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, talking about some robotic AI back in 1956. We'll be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hello, everybody. You're listening to me, Ruta Lee, on the Dr. Sky Experience on Talk Radio WABC.
46 minutes after the hour, our good friend Robbie the Robot says hi. And he hopefully can say it right now.
Welcome to Altair 4, gentlemen. I am to transport you to the residence.
Now there's AI back in 1956, right, Patrick? Isn't that amazing? That's total.
That's fantastic. I could just picture you doing that right there on your desk. Holy mackerel.
Well, I'm holding my dusty, and everybody can get one of these, but I don't know. That's a whole nother subject. But ladies and gentlemen, this is fascinating when we get callers like I said, Melvin from Indiana, talking about these great stories. And again, look at 2001. How did Kubrick come up with such a great idea? Arthur C. Clarke was also responsible from his, the actual novels that he wrote. And those two together were dynamite. Keir Dullea. I mean, what an amazing actor who plays the lead role in that particular movie. Way ahead of its time back in 1968. But let's continue on. We have so many people that I'm sure want to talk with us and so many people that have comments, questions in the form of dialogue. But let's continue on with the gentleman that I want you to identify better for this audience, Peter Thiel. Who is he? What's he up to? And why should we be concerned, at least understanding what's going on maybe in the backside or behind the scenes with this whole subject of computers and technocracy?
Wow. Well, Peter Thiel, as it turns out, is, I think, the master architect of what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now, with all these technocrats that are milling around President Trump and taking over agencies, strip mining data out of our precious databases in the government. And his company, Palantir, is an intelligence-oriented company that has been selected to make sense of all the data that's been sprung, if you will, thanks to Elon Musk and his Doge implementation. And so here you have one guy, apparently, or at least one company, Palantir, that's going to be in charge of all the personal data that's being is sprung out of the government. I'm talking about health records. I'm talking about the HHS records, everything like tax records. All of the data in the government at this point is being sprung into the cloud so that it could be analyzed and, picked apart by this artificial intelligence program. This is Peter Thiel. He's been at this for all these years since he was the co-founder of PayPal with Elon Musk back in the early 2000s. And he's still with us today. He's has a lot of years left, I'm sure, in his career. But he's somebody we really, really need to understand what makes him tick and what he's doing in particular. And let me just set the stage here.
Please.
Peter Thiel and his companies are getting huge contracts from the government, from the military, you name it. They just got one contract with the military, $10 billion over the next 10 years. What?
That's amazing.
That's crazy. So he's making a fortune at this point. He's going to be one of the richest men in the world soon, like up there with Elon Musk. And we see Elon Musk and Peter Thiel cast in the same mold when they co-founded PayPal back in the day. And they're basically on the same page today, trying to, transform our government into something that is not, at least not what we're used to in the past. That's not what we asked for. So he's a very, very dark individual. We should pay a very close attention to him.
Well, let's talk about that. It lends to the topic of this whole concept called the Big Reset. So in your definition of the Big Reset, I mean, I've heard many different iterations of this, and I don't necessarily, I'm not the scholar in this. To you, what is the Big Reset in a definition? How would you describe it?
Well, the Great Reset was a concept that was floated by Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum, and basically he was talking about an economic reset of the whole world, basically. And it was a scorched earth policy to get rid of capitalism as we know it, the monetary system as we know it. And the idea was to create a new utopian-based system, but it didn't stop there, because if they could even do that, they were worried about all the people that would come in, and they blame us, you and me, for having ruined this world in the first place. So they're backing this transhuman movement to change humanity into, and this is his phrase, in the Humans 2.0. So Humans 2.0 are being designed to go into this new system, the utopian system, so they'd have, maybe a chance to make it work. But they realized they couldn't do it with us people. We would just tear it apart, right? Probably not, whatever. That's kind of the concept of the Great Reset. That's a society thing. Then you have the people to inhabit this new world. They're going to be the transhumans.
Well, here we go. The Mind and Body, I talked about an article from the Epoch Times. I mean, there's many sources of news and journalism out there, but I just happen to have this one. And the lead article here is entitled, "The Cognitive Debt We Accumulate Every Time We Use AI." The subtitle is, "Every prompt may be coming at the cost of cognitive efficiency and creativity." And for centuries, obviously, our capacity for independent thought has been considered fundamental to human dignity. So not to scare people, if there's students out there, or you're going for your PhD or master's degree or anything else in between or below, sideways, tangential, or whatever, using this, we're not trying to scare you, but what's the gist of this? It's making us, less of a critical thinker because something else is doing it for us, taking away that part of what normal conversation or intellectual, I don't know. You fill in the blank. What is it? We're missing something.
Exactly. Here's a scientific study. this is actually a scientific peer-reviewed study that just came out just last week that's talking about how AI has eroded doctors' ability to spot cancer within months. And this is, as I said, this is a study. So what they did, they tracked some doctors who were using AI and didn't use AI to spot cancers on MRIs and X-rays, etc.
Sure.
However they would do that. When they got access to AI to do their diagnosis, their skills fell away, and now they said their 20%, their ability to find tumors dropped by 20% compared with rates, but before the tool was ever introduced. So there you go. This cognitive ability being diminished in a group of professionals. This is their field. They're trained to spot tumors and cancer patients. But because of AI taking the place of the diagnosis, they're losing that skill. That's all I can say.
Now, you bring up good things. Let's remind everybody, Patrick, from your words and your mouth, how do people get in touch with you? And tell us a little bit about that before the clock runs out at the top of the hour.
Well, you bet. Technocracy.news, that's where everybody can find me. All my books are there. You can see all my articles. The boot camp is there. Videos are there with documentary on the homepage. That's the place to go for Technocracy News.
I appreciate it. Part of the Great Reset might be this, and, like myself and everybody out there, we scour the news. We don't always believe everything we read on the Internet. At least please don't. But this is interesting. Part of the Great Reset, as some of these articles allude to, with the conversation that President Trump is having with President Putin of Russia, that Putin may have, in other words, one of his things that he may be looking to do is debase the entire economic system with a whole way to debase the dollar with other nations that don't want to see the American dollar be strong at all. And that's an interesting thing because there is some power on his side. And obviously the main effort is to stop the war, per President Trump and others, to stop the fighting in the Ukraine. But isn't that in many ways something that we could say could be part of a great reset? Debase the economic system of not only the dollar, but turn us into some other digital currency thing, which people probably, I don't know. I like to carry some cash in my wallet, but or in my pocket, excuse me. I haven't had that much, but the point is, who the heck wants to live in a totally digital society? Not me, but maybe I have a problem. Or do I?
Well, you and me have a problem. All of your listeners as well have a problem.
That's why I'm trying to tease it to the people out there listening around the nation and around the world, folks, because, seriously, if you like to pay things, doesn't it say on our currency for all debts, public and private? I think that was on the dollar or the currency. Then why are we, what happens if one day, could they decide to say, okay, all the money you have in the bank gets converted at lower than the percentage that you own it, and you gotta go to digital. And some of the stores, I don't want to knock different companies. Out here in Arizona, I'm sure people all over the world, the nation, they're going to go 100% digital, some of these places. And what if you don't like it? Too bad. You don't shop there anymore, I guess, right? Amazing.
I guess so. Steve, I received an email today from a friend in California. This was a joke. Okay, this is like something that came out from the Onion website. But the rumor was, tongue in cheek for sure, that President Trump offered Putin if he would just give the land back to Ukraine and just go back to the original borders, that Trump would give him California.
Oh, jeez. Well, that's an interesting comment, ladies and gentlemen. But let me say this to the listeners out there and the callers. If you've been anxiously awaiting to speak to Patrick Wood, we have hour number 2 coming. So let's say this way. Rich in New Jersey, Billy in Delaware, Robert in Philadelphia, Tony in Queens. If you don't mind hanging on, and I know, thank you for doing that, we will get to you as we continue in hour number 2. And in hour number 2, we continue. Obviously, Patrick Wood's our guest. We want to talk about a lot of other things. ChatGPT. We want to talk about so many of the things that are in the news right now. How about smart meters and surveillance? And that's something that everybody out there, if they have a home or even if they don't, even if you're an apartment dweller, there's some sort of a smart meter somewhere, right, Patrick, that is checking up and doing something. And also the concerns that people may have with the 5G. You know, I mean, that's another thing. Years ago, it was considered to be not 100% foolproof as far as its deleterious effects on the human body. We still don't know all about that. And, of course, ladies and gentlemen, your questions and comments to a show that does, I think, its best ability. You're the judge, ladies and gentlemen, around the nation, around the world, of opening our mind to the many mysteries, not only of the universe, with great guests from astronomy, space, aviation, weather, American exceptionalism, as we talk proudly, and celebrity guests in the mix. Patrick, we'll be right back for hour number 2. And ladies and gentlemen, we've only just begun to discuss the subjects of technocracy, transhumanism, and the Big Reset. We'll see you in just a few minutes.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
At 5 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, we come back on the air. Dr. Sky Experience with great information from these various realms that we talk about: astronomy, space, aviation, weather, American exceptionalism, celebrity guests, etc., etc. In our opinion, trying to add some intellectual spice to your weekends. And ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to email me, that's easy. It's just drsky@wabcradio.com. And we, suggest that you go back and look at the archive here for the Dr. Sky Experience if you've missed a show. You can find that at wabcradio.com or the alternate redappleaudionetworks.com. And don't forget, not only this particular archive, the Dr. Sky Experience, but all the great hosts that are here on this great radio station. A thank you, a big one, and a serious one, sincere, to Tony and Bill. They're our helmsmen. What do? They navigate this signal out to the entire listening audience around the nation, around the world, and I'm even sure with subjects that we talk about, well, out into the cosmos. Our special guest, if you're just joining us this hour, is Patrick Wood of Technocracy.news. He, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, due to popular demand from the emails, you've requested him back, and we followed your wishes to the letter of the law. Patrick, welcome back. Appreciate your time, and let's go to the callers because you light it up again, as always. Let's say good morning. He's been patiently waiting. Let's say good morning to Rich in New Jersey. How are you this morning, Rich?
Yeah, hi, guys. I was going to a question about AI, but I have a phenomenal story about a website.
Okay.
I go to a Catholic men's group once a month on Saturday, and I got to meet this gentleman. His name is James. And I said, James, where do you live? He goes, I lived in one of my daughter's homes with her husband in Mendham. I said, well, what do you mean? Oh, they own homes all over the United States. I said, well, what's the husband do? His name is Craig. I said, yeah, from Craigslist. He's from Craig. He sold it. I go, you gotta be kidding me.
You gotta be kidding me.
I just was like so nonchalant. That's Craig from Craigslist.
That's it. Boy, how could you get a better contact than that?
I mean, gee. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Movies real quick.
Yes,
Rock Hudson in Seconds. I don't know if you remember that movie.
I haven't seen that one.
Falkenheimer, John.
Yeah, you can be our movie critic for a moment. Go ahead, or go ahead.
Well, real quick. He's a older man who's unhappy with his life, and he goes, he changes his life. Do a whole makeup, a fake death, he gets an insurance policy, and he goes on with it. You have to read the synopsis of it on very good. Anyway, as far as AI, does it have a sense of morality or lack of morality? Will it prevent people from launching a missile or pushing a button to launch a drone because you can't kill people?
Good question, Rich.
You know?
Yeah, good question. Patrick, boy, this is a good one. I like this. Go ahead.
Hello? Okay.
Yeah, Patrick, are you there?
I can. Since AI is not, well, it's just a machine for one thing. It can't have an ethical anything. It can't have morality. And as such, it can't really advise you straight up on so many issues. In fact, some people have reported, and I saw an article just a few weeks ago, where a young teenager, a black lad, a nice-looking guy too, he was suckered into a relationship with an AI that convinced him to kill himself.
Oh, now that's horrible. God. Yeah,
exactly. So
that's horrible.
No, there's no morality. There's no ethics involved with AI. It's just a machine. Like I said, it can spit stuff out to you, and it can rearrange words that you might make sense or not. But there's no morality behind it at all.
Rich, you get the last word. Go right ahead, because this is a hot topic here. I didn't realize that it had no morality at all. So, Rich, what say you? Did we lose Rich? Well, Rich, now you'll have to take the answers off air, but thank you for calling the Dr. Sky Experience. Let's welcome Billy in the great state of Delaware. You're on the Dr. Sky Experience with Patrick Wood. How are you doing? Billy, go ahead. Oh, okay, we got one of those. Well, let's say good morning to Robert in Philadelphia. Robert, we always welcome your commentary to the Dr. Sky Experience. How are you this morning?
Hi, Dr. Sky. Patrick, it's good to talk to you, enjoying the show. Before I get to my question, I'm thinking about this, extending your life or living forever, and two things popped into my head. The first was that I'm 150 years old, and I look out my window and see my 125-year-old son coming up the sidewalk to borrow money from me. The second...
I love it, Robert. Keep going. This is good.
The second one, and it's a little more serious in that I'll leave that to future generations, because my greatest fear is having to bury one of my kids. I don't want to live so long that that's an issue for me, you know. Absolutely. So if I can get 80 good years, I'm happy with that, and I'll go with a smile. I promise. But at any rate, going on what the person said about Hal and the prior caller, I heard about something. Unfortunately, I didn't read it, or else I'd have a more concise story about it. But it was a program that was designed to complete a given task, and its own was that it could not let anything prevent it from completing its task. And it was filled with a bunch of information on a company, including its protocols, its standards of operation, everything. And within that information was a tidbit that a certain technician was scheduled to turn off that program. And the second bit of information was that technician was having an extramarital affair.
Yes,
and I heard that in a majority of the occasions, the AI system decided to try to blackmail that technician to prevent it from being shut down. And I wonder if stuff like that, you were talking about the bad effects of social media, if those things ever are hybrided into a single technology, just consider the devastating impact that could have on society. Do you know what I mean? I was wondering if Patrick heard about that.
Well, before he answers, let me just say something here. It's Anthropic's AI resorts to blackmail in simulations, not to steal Patrick's thunder. But what I wanted to say here before we lose you, Robert, is I wanted to just have a conversation with you one day about the F-15 when we talk aviation. So let's hold that one.
I would love to do that, yeah.
But Patrick, you got the floor. This is an interesting one. You're so right, Robert, about what this AI engine did. Tell us.
I didn't hear all the question.
I think basically Robert, say it again so he can hear that, so Patrick can hear you. I'm sorry.
No problem, but there was information in there that enabled the AI system to blackmail the technician who was scheduled to shut him down. And it was funny because you said they had no morality or ethics, and I'm thinking,
there you
go. That's interesting. Well, this is not a morality per se, but it understands our standards. What would embarrass us the most, and obviously that's what happened here. That's a very interesting situation.
Yeah, I remember it from reading this. I mean, I have an article here in front of me. I won't go over the whole thing because of time. But, Robert, it basically was exactly as you said. This particular AI engine heard and listened to everything, and then the other person said, they maybe wanted to turn it off. Don't you dare do that, or I'll reveal your, extramarital affair. So You're right. These things don't have much of they're pretty smart, but they don't have much morality. But then again, maybe they shouldn't have had an extramarital affair, but that's not my business, right?
A modernized Hal. I really appreciate it, you guys. You have a great night and a great weekend.
Well, thank you, Robert, for calling into the Dr. Sky Experience. Let's see if the caller line continues. It looks like it does, like a conga line. Let's say good morning if he's there. Tony, good morning in Queens. How are you? Do we have Tony? Tony's gone, so I guess we have our full caller list right now. And if you'd like to jump in on the conversation, 1-800-848-9222. And just tell us again who is on the line. I'm sorry, I didn't. Oh, Frank, go ahead, please. Good morning. You're on with the illustrious Patrick Wood. How are you?
How are you, Dr. Sky? Mr. Wood, I would just like to say I'm a supporter of the Apollo 11 mission, the Voyager 2, right? And also, many of my cousins-in-laws, unfortunately, I don't want to say this, but they have lost their understanding because they believe in AI. They say that, it's better to believe in something that helps society ease tensions, facilitate time, facilitate things in life, rather than do old-time, detective work and do old-time work, because it says, they've told me, my cousins-in-law, please, AI is just for the betterment of society. It's not for the destruction, as you said before, Dr. Sky, of our philosophical advancement and better, clearer understanding of ourselves and others. But I don't really buy that, and I feel very bad that many people support AI. And I don't know if you have statistics on how AI is going to take over our industries in the United States, like our car factories and everything, because I've seen that many workers have been phased out. They don't want to bring back old line work. They're depending more on AI. So
all robots, right? Patrick, good commentary here. Please respond.
That's good comment for sure. This is the year that robots are going to be introduced to the world. By the end of this 2025, the prototypes going forward will all be released to the world. Elon Musk predicts this will be
it's incredible. And some other stories that we talk about here on this particular archive with the Dr. Sky Experience. Elon Musk, in case people have not really, tuned in on this, they're busy. His mission to Mars, which many people said, well, wait a minute, you don't want to put a bunch of humans on board something. You don't know if they'll come back. Some have already signed up for the one-way mission. That wouldn't be me, but what they're doing is their Optimus robot is apparently going to make the outreach, which is quite interesting. So this robot can endure radiation. It can endure lack of oxygen. So obviously, it's not human. So talk about that. I mean, you're right. The whole thing with robots is just totally amazing. This is not the Jetsons. It's a modernized version of something that you watch the videos of Optimus, and it's kind of spooky in a way to me.
It really is. And by the end of 2026, my guess is we'll see robots mixing in with society, even on the street. I'm talking like the robots, like humanoid robots that have legs and arms, whatever, and they can, motor around. This is going to be very disturbing for a lot of people just to see that, just to get that picture. But the robots going forward will also displace workers and jobs that workers used to do. And it's going to be a huge influence on the labor market. You could just imagine, even things like plumbers and electricians could be out of a job at some point if the AI gets smart enough to instruct these robots how to do these jobs.
Well, then you'd have to come up with, I don't like the idea, some guaranteed income for people just to sit around. And wouldn't that be a negative effect to human creativity? Imagine just sitting around all day. Some people may think it's awesome. Just send me the 20,000 or 10,000 or whatever a year you get, or hopefully, you can't live on that. But imagine that, Patrick. You're not even in the circle of anything, productivity. You're just like a neutered, like they said before, and you said, you will own nothing.
Exactly.
And you will be happy.
Exactly. The technocrats who were promoting UBI, that's Universal Basic Income, they've they're calling this new worker class the unemployables. They'll never have a job again because their job is destroyed by AI. So they postulate that the unemployables can't ever work again. So they're just going to give them universal basic income. Hardly enough to survive, I'm sure, but basically the idea is just give them a couch, give them a virtual reality headset or something, and let them play games for the rest of their life. I don't know. But this is a very disturbing picture of the future for sure.
Well, it's interesting. And you look at the laborers, you have to feel a lot of the laborers out there that pick the crops out there in the fields. I mean, a lot of these are good people with good families. So what does that mean? They're going to be totally displaced from a job. And, that's a whole other subject matter because that's hard labor. So I gather a robot could gather what? More corn in the field or more whatever, cotton than any human could. And that's very sad. But then look at it from the other type of jobs. Let's say a person sits behind a computer, a desk all day long. What would be the validation to have them if the computer could do it 10,000 times quicker? You're right. You'd be out the door and you'd be what? As you said, what was the term? Permanently unemployable?
Unemployables. Not the unemployed, but unemployables.
No, that's just horrible. In my mind. But let's look at it this way. Go a little step further with this. And again, 1-800-848-9222. We'll get as many people as we can in on this dialogue, talking with Patrick Wood, technocracy.news, talking about what is coming down the pipeline, folks. And, not to scare people out there. We're trying to add some intellectual spice, as we said, in our way to your weekends. Hopefully we're succeeding. And we'll only know by the level of commentary that we get on this. But talk more about these robots. You could actually have in a Jetson-esque kind of a, scenario. Imagine you could have a robot doing certain menial tasks, or, if they're not menial, some very necessary tasks in and around your house. That would be cool in one way, but a little spooky in my mind, too. Look at the price. How much would one of these robots maybe be? And how many people could really afford one until what? The next generation comes out down the line. It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, Elon Musk is predicting that the price will be under $20,000. That's less than the price of a car. But one application for robots, this is already established. This is very disturbing to me. Is the whole field of elder care. Who's going to take care of grandma and grandpa when they get old? You see, and there's a new class of robots even now that are assisting in nursing homes to deliver food and medicine and all this to play games with the older people and converse with them, play music for them, all this kind of stuff. This is really this takes the place of the kids that should probably be taking care of their elder parents. But
I understand.
I know
that is controversial. And let's say this in the surgical realm. I'm not a medical doctor by any means, but I had a knee replacement. Wow, my right knee. And it really, when I talked to my surgeon, very nice man, he told me that there's going to be this machine called Da Vinci. This was 3 or 4 years ago. And I went, Da Vinci, wasn't he like the great scientist and artist? And he goes, no. He goes, that may be true, but it's a robot that does the surgery. So apparently I was knocked out. I couldn't tell. But amazing what those robots can do in that way. I think there is a benefit. Wouldn't you not agree in certain areas like that?
Yeah, it seems that that could be a good application. And more surgeries will be performed by robotics going forward. That's a given, I think, at this point. They'll get more skilled, and maybe they'll have a supervisor or doctor assisting the robot instead of the other way around. But you can see this is going to change the medical industry altogether.
Well, I just came up with an idea. I'm not the genius here, but the idea, imagine for the seniors, and I talk to a lot of senior communities on these space subjects. They love this because it enriches their minds. They like this. But the point I'm making is, wouldn't it be amazing if they had a little robotic dog or a cat that could do the same thing as maybe having one that you'd have to take care of and not have all the medical bills that go in associated with that? But maybe I just took the love out of the whole thing because maybe it'd be hard to love an artificial animal like that.
Well,
don't you think?
Perhaps you can get one on Amazon right now, Steve.
I'm just kidding.
It's already there, exactly like you describe it.
1-800-848-9222. Rare opportunity here to ask the question of a man who's been specializing, ladies and gentlemen, in this subject. He's the author of many books: Technocracy, The Hard Road to World Order, Technocracy Rising, The Trojan Horse of Global Transformation, and co-author of, how about this, Trilateralists over Washington. And Wood remains a leading expert on the elitist Trilateral Commission. Tell us what the Trilateralist Commission is for anybody out there at this early hour or evening in the West Coast or around the world morning. What is the Trilateral Commission?
Oh, my. Well, that was an organization that was started in 1973 by David Rockefeller. Somebody will remember who that was.
Yes.
And Zbigniew Brzezinski, the brilliant political science professor, they formed this organization called the Trilateral Commission in order to build a new international economic order. That's what they said all over the literature. And I was fortunate to document the workings and the operation of the Trilateral Commission with Professor Anthony Sutton back in that day. So I know a lot about it.
Very interesting. And you're an economist by profession, so people understand that. You just didn't stand on a street corner and get an inspiration from a solar flare. You have absolutely, and talk about that. I mean, that's an interesting profession, being an economist. I mean, it's not something everybody wants to do, but tell us how you got started in that field.
Well, I went to college for one thing. I probably forgot everything within two years after I got out of college.
Understood. Right.
But when I hooked up with Anthony Sutton, he was a professor of economics at UCLA, then later at Stanford University. So he was very, very highly, skilled in economic theory. And so I teamed up with him to study the Trilateral Commission. That's he finished my education for me, put it that way, taught me how to find information, how to analyze it, and et cetera. And that's how I kind of got my professional start when I met Sutton in the first place. So it's been a rocky road, I have to say. At this point, all the skills that I learned back then, they don't work anymore because economics and business has changed so much that none of the tools that we had in that day, none of them work anymore. So go figure.
Well, let me ask you this, though this may not be a totally fair question for you, but I'm going to take a stab at it. This whole concept of cryptocurrency, I mean, how does that tie into what you might have as a warning to the world? If old globalism, technocracy, and all the other things we're talking about, how does that relate? And your opinion on the whole concept of cryptocurrency, what would you say?
Well, this is a part and parcel of this new system, economic system that's being created right now. Since Trump took office in January 20, I think it was. Since then, a new superstructure, a regulation superstructure, has been erected to have an alternative crypto-based, blockchain-based currency system in America. And it's not being issued by the central bank, the Federal Reserve. It's been blocked to this. But so basically, it's a privatized system at this point that's being created to take the digital currency and the digitization of all assets in the world, basically, at some point. And it's going to basically drive cash and the dollar out of business altogether.
That's exactly what we talked about before, about Vladimir Putin and other countries that want to debase the dollar and turn us into this part of the globalism concept, I gather. I'm not Patrick Wood, but I guess it's pretty obvious that there's changes afoot. But, I'm a little upset when people say that they want to get rid of cash. I mean, obviously then there, to me, has a nefarious backbone on that because governments want to track everything you do. And why should they if we're not doing anything illegal, right? I mean, come on.
That's exactly right. A lot of people feel very strongly about that. I do too. But, when I go out to a restaurant today, I spend cash. I tell the server, why am I giving them cash? And they get it. They understand that cash is on the way out. and I say, you know what? I want to especially give you this tip to put in your pocket right now.
That's exactly right.
You can spend it anywhere you want, and you don't have to report it to anybody.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, more with Patrick Wood here as we continue on the Dr. Sky Experience. 1-800-848-9222. If you're in the queue, we'll do our very best to get with you with your questions and comments in the form of dialogue. Because remember, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't make this up. 3 things all mankind is seeking. I don't think there's a debate. It's freedom, prosperity, and peace. And we'll be right back here on Talk Radio 77 WABC as we move toward the top of the second hour with the Dr. Sky Experience. We'll be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is Senator Ted Kennedy from Massachusetts. I'm talking to Steve Cates.
The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance. It's the illusion of knowledge. A very interesting and apropos quote from the late Stephen Hawking. And we appreciate Senator Kennedy's commentary in my previous shows. He was a big fan of talking about things that go into the nighttime sky, as opposed to what you might know about him from the political world in the Kennedy family. 34 minutes after the hour, Patrick Wood rejoins us. And thank you so much, Patrick, for being with us for this particular excursion of the Dr. Sky Experience. You can be found at technocracy.news. And ladies and gentlemen, I ask you kindly to go there to learn so much more about this special guest. But for now, Patrick, let's continue with the callers here. Let's say good morning to Jean in Long Island. How are you? Good morning. Jean, are you with us?
Yes. Yes.
Good morning, sir. Go ahead. We cannot hear you unless you can speak up a little louder. Then try that.
Okay.
Yes,
a couple of points. As we speak, they're having the world's first humanoid robot games in Beijing. 500 humanoid robots, 280 teams from 16 countries.
It's pretty interesting.
There you go.
Patrick, I think we lost him, but I think you heard most of what he was mentioning. That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And this underscores what I just said about this is the year of the robot. Starting by the end of 2025, you're going to see all of these, many prototypes are going to be set in stone at that point, ready for manufacture, mass manufacturing. This show that's taking place in China right now, this is an amazing show. You'll probably see some videos on it going forward, but check them out. It's going to be, you'll see all the latest stuff, and it'll blow your mind, I'm sure, what these robots can do at this point.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
Gene, are you still with us, or did we lose you? Just go ahead if you want. Go ahead.
I'm here.
Go ahead, sir. No, you get the last word. Go ahead.
The other point I wanted to make was the purpose of the insidious the nature of what you were speaking about earlier. I think there's what I call the control of chaos. And there's also what I call the perfection of chaos. And in regards to the control of chaos, I worked in a boiler room environment, and just real briefly, and I don't have much time. The management had their feet up on the desk, and phones were, flying through the air, and basically the natives were under control in a chaotic situation. Management didn't have to do anything.
Yeah, I get it.
It was just totally out of control.
No, I hear you.
Now, the perfection of chaos is that chaos is perfection. You know what I mean? If you have a bunch of insidious individuals wanting to do bad things, they don't really care how it's done. The order is what's difficult. To keep things, like say the Von C conference. What was the Von C conference? It was how can we perfectly kill the most Jews with the least amount of effort. They didn't really care about the Jewish population. But they just want, okay, let's not use all of the bullets, and you have the PTSD because of the.
Yeah, I hear you. Right. Mm-hmm.
So
no, it's amazing.
the chaos is the goal for these the insidious nature of these individuals and these organizations.
Well, you're right, Gene, but before we go to Patrick on this one, I got to mention something from the astrophysics world here, not to get too technical. The nature of the universe is run on chaos, and most people find that to be hard to believe, but I'm sorry that your experiences were like that. Patrick, your response to Gene as we go through time and space here. We've got a ton of other callers, but hey, everybody's got their opportunity to give us some dialogue, and I appreciate what Gene's been talking about. What do you say, Patrick?
You bet. There's a distinct flavor amongst the technocrat class in Washington, D.C., for instance, right now, that wants to promote chaos so that they can offer a solution for the chaos that they're going to create. That I'll just leave it at that. But we can see this coming. Chaos is going to be a big thing.
Well, it was also a big part of The Man from U.N.C.L.E., if you remember that.
Oh, yes.
There you go. Gene, thank you for calling us. I appreciate your time. I hope we answered at least some of what you were talking about. But again, from the astrophysical world, the universe, unfortunately, seems to be run on chaos, and many people might take exception to that. Not that we should have it here. But, Gene, thanks for being with us. I appreciate your time. That's interesting. Patrick, this is fascinating subject. We've got so many subjects we want to jump into here, and I know people are on the line on hold. But let's talk a little bit about this. You talk about something that the TSA is now going to this touchless biometric digital at airports. Just give us a little rundown on that. What are we talking about here? I think I get it, but you know more about it.
Well, anybody that flies knows how progressive they've been with their technology. There's always something new. It seems like every time I fly, I see something new. Especially when I go through the check-in line at the first iteration of it in the case. Yes. Well, there's a movement to privatize the systems, especially to use what they call touchless biometric information. That means your facial features. In other words, scanning your face to take a picture of you when you enter the airport. That will take you all the way through to get on the airplane through security, and then you get to check a point, and they'll scan your face every step of the way. And you'll be on your plane as soon as you can. I guess that they say, well, this is going to be very convenient for people because they won't have to touch anything, get germs, that sort of thing. And they say it's going to really be convenient. Well, I got news for them. It's not just a matter of convenience, because every time they take your picture, they're going to take more information from you. And, this is really a disturbing thing.
No, you're right. And that's another subject in itself, Patrick, because we would have to get legal scholars on this, because there comes a point where you need to have security, but what's overt and then reaching beyond, which is something that who's checking the checker on this? And remember, we all, after 9/11, God bless, a horrible day for America and the world, but it's, obviously a horrific thing. I remember where I was, and so does everybody who's listening. A horrible day for everybody and the loss of life. But the point is, when we started this whole thing about scanning, and it just seems like you're right. Every day it gets to the point where it's getting to be overt. Everybody's digitally connected. And wait a second, the presumption that I seem to feel, not to be paranoid, is that, what did I do wrong? Well, you didn't do anything wrong, but just shut up and move along the line, because we're telling you we're going to do this. So who's checking the checker, I guess, is what we're talking about here. And you're bringing up these very important subjects to us. I almost don't want to fly sometimes, and not that I don't enjoy airplanes or the people at the airport. It's just the overcongestion, there's like this weird feeling I get. It's like, it's called what? Surveillance. Interesting, right? Surveillance everywhere. And how much is enough? And then people out there, if you disagree, you could say, well, wait a minute, Steve, Dr. Sky, what are you talking about? Of course, we have to protect everybody, but the answers may come in the form of dialogue from people at 1-800-848-9222. That's also on the radar that we were talking about before, but Patrick, I know this isn't fair to you in just a minute or two. Let's just start the conversation about smart meters. This is very interesting. We never really dug into it because I've got one in my home. You probably got one, and everybody listening's probably got one.
Probably they do. You can opt out for an old-fashioned meter, not driven by wireless technology, not collecting all the information inside your house. But when these smart meters were first introduced during the Obama administration, everybody was concerned about the EMF radiation that they gave off, and that's probably a legitimate concern. But the whole purpose of the smart meter in the first place was to collect information on all the devices in your house and your energy signatures, how you use the energy. Your energy basically tells everything about you. If you can mine that information, everything is exposed. Your refrigerator, even to the point when you open the door for your refrigerator, when you turn a motor on, like your air conditioner, when you hot water tank, etc. All these things can be determined from the utility's point of view. This has been a data collection mechanism from the get-go. And like you said, almost everybody in the country now has a smart meter.
That's amazing. You know, ladies and gentlemen, the last break of this hour as we move to the top of the second hour of the Dr. Sky Experience, more with our very special guest, Patrick Wood. And we'll do our very best to get as many of you on that may have opinions. And obviously in the form of dialogue, everybody should have an opinion. Questions and comments to the Dr. Sky Experience. We'll be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I'm Dr. David Robarge, the Chief Historian of the Central Intelligence Agency, author of Archangel, CIA's supersonic A-12 reconnaissance aircraft, and you're listening to The Dr. Sky Show.
Science without religion is lame, but religion without science is blind. Another quote that's very much apropos from the great late scientist Albert Einstein. 46 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for joining us with our guest, Patrick Wood. Let's go to the callers. Let's say good morning to Russ in White Plains. How are you this morning, and thanks for listening.
Hi, Dr. Sky. You really triggered me with the movie Forbidden Planet. My father was watching that when I was born in 1956 after 24 hours later.
You bet.
If Robert in Philadelphia needs a couple of bucks for his son, he should be glad, because my son only calls me on my birthday and to take care of his dog, which at least it's flesh and blood. But what I want to ask Patrick, I'd like to know, with all this talk about politicians picking their voters, in Texas and California, what would be the effect on redistricting without competition, without partisan redistricting on picking voters? And the second thing, when I heard you were an economist, Patrick, I wanted to know, do you think that AI will be the ultimate self-destabilization of capitalism, and it'll lead to out-of-work citizens using democracy to usher in a world that distributes social wealth equitably, so Musk and Thiel can't use campaign contributions to concentrate wealth and dominate society? Thanks a lot, Patrick and Dr. Scott.
No, thank you, Russ, for your call. And obviously, Patrick, jump in on that. A very, interesting set of commentaries and questions.
It is. And, AI is on target, and intentionally so, to destroy at least constitutional democracy as we understand it today. That will also include the destruction, finally, of the U.S. Constitution. The AI has been designed as a social engineering tool to change the minds of voters and people, not just voters only, but anybody's mind that it gets a hold of. The idea of AI is, from the programmer's point of view, is to subtly change your mind, where you come up with new narratives that you're willing to speak they're not the narratives that you spoke before. In other words, you have freedom of speech, but you're not going to have freedom of thought. And if they can control your thought processes, then they can control your speech as well. Well, think about the implications this is for any election going forward. If whoever has their hand on the control mechanism for AI, if they can shift the population left or right, or to technocracy for that matter, if they're able to shift the population's viewpoint, there's really no free elections left at that point.
There you go.
This is very disturbing. But
let's go and say good morning. Let's thank Russ in White Plains. I know there's so many callers here. Sorry to cut you off there, Patrick. Let's say good morning to David in Staten Island. Your commentary to the subject at hand. Good morning.
Dr. Sky, in the past number of months ago, during the equinox, I saw something I never saw before. There were two white dots a certain distance from each other. Mm-hmm. The clouds covered all the other stars, but these two stood out.
Yes, absolutely.
And, let me see if I can figure out what I'm about to say, because they always get them mixed up. Got Mercury, Venus, Earth. So did I see Mars and Jupiter? Those white dots I saw for the naked eye?
No, you're very observant, David. Let me just explain what it is. I always try to give a sky report, and thanks for reminding me here. That's the basic core of the show. But in the morning sky, folks, and if you look in there, David, as you've seen, into the northeast before, let's say, sunrise, about 4:30 in the morning, you'll see both Venus and you'll see the planet Jupiter. And they were exceptionally close just about on this past Monday. But there's still a beautiful sight in the sky. But the big news, here we go again. This is the big sky news. On the morning of the 19th and the 20th, you'll get not just those two planets together, but the crescent waning moon. So that should be a beautiful sight, David. So there's your answer, Venus.
Dr. Sky, I think what it was a bit more than that. It's a long story. I hate myself when I talk.
Okay. Well,
I
appreciate
thank you very much.
No, thank you for your time, and always appreciate everybody who has those queries and, concerns about the sky. We certainly will get back to our regular themes as we move through the year. Oh, wow. There's a lot of interesting people out there. What would you say, Patrick? So let's say good morning to Tony in Clifton. She's been patiently waiting. Good morning. How are you, Tony?
Hi, Patrick. Hi, Dr. Sky. I have to say I came in sort of at the end of your chat, but I heard you say, Patrick, that, you're an economist, which is the most fascinating thing to me. And I wanted to say that I recently read a book that really showed me how, wonderful it is when there are no technocrats in the government. And I wanted to just share that with you, and then I'll say goodnight. If you have time, read it.
No, thank you for the comment.
The book is JFK and the Reagan Revolution. It was written by Lawrence Kudlow, who is on WABC, and Brian Dimitrovic. And it really showed how when there are no technocrats, JFK was able to move out of the normal economic flow, which would have prevented all the growth that we had in our economy. And so it's a great book. It's a great read. It's easy to read. And I think with all the technocracy in finances, I really like to go back to the basics of economics. So I hope you enjoy the book if you have time to read it. It really showed me how these thinking out of the box and not being like that can really help our economy, which is some of what we're seeing now.
Tony and Clifton, thank you for your insightful commentary. Patrick, your response, and then we're going to try to get a couple of more callers in here. Wow, you're lighting up the line here, Patrick.
I like the book. I like the book for one thing. Understand that the old economic system that I was trained in is at odds with technocracy, because this is an alternative economic system. It has nothing to do with free market economics at all, but it's a new economic system that's being impressed on our country right now. Yes, it's going to be bad for us. We don't need this kind of a solution. And the more the technocrats get into our head and into our administrations, the worse it's going to be for us, because technocracy wants to take over the old economic system altogether.
Thank you, Tony and Clifton, for some insightful commentary and the additional information on the book.
Yes.
Let's say good morning to Christine in Manhattan. You're on with Patrick Wood. How are you this morning?
Hi, Mr. Wood. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I was listening with fascination to this program, and I've read something about it. I know what the singularity is. I know about transhumanism. And to me, I'm a registered nurse. To me, it just looks like a great big nothing burger when you really go through it and think about it a lot. And I think there's a Malthusian element here, because essentially what they're doing is replacing human beings. And you mentioned before the name of David Rockefeller. He's the same fellow that jump-started communism in the East Village. He's the guy that financed the Bolshevik Revolution and sent Trotsky over there. So why would somebody like David Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller, want communism? Well, because it ends in totalitarianism, which is total control. And I'm very much afraid of this. I don't like it. And I think the other thing is Einstein had one of my favorite quote from him is he says the difference between genius and mediocrity is that the wisdom and mediocrity is that the genius knows the difference, knows its limits.
Christine, you're filling us with inspiration. I appreciate it. Lack of time is why we have to say thank you, and you'll have to take the answer off air. Patrick, we conclude this in a few minutes, but your response to Christine.
I like what she said. What can I say? Yeah, she hit the nail on the head.
Curious if we have a Bob in Long Island, do we? I'm just curious if we had one more caller. And if you're on with us, good morning. Is there a Bob in the house?
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning.
Yes,
thanks for waiting.
I did hear. Good morning. I did hear about Musk and the $2,000 robots before, and we talked about reality. Well, if you remember the 2018 Spielberg movie, Ready Player One, that's where all the people didn't work because they were busy sitting on their couch playing video games. So that's
exactly
people that's been around. There is also a startup company that is talking about building houses using robots. They say they can do it for $30,000 less. That's another point. And elder care, I think, will turn into elder genocide because of a drag on resources. I think that's where they'll be going with the unemployables. And I refuse to fly because of security. But what I really wanted to ask is, in 92, there was a professor, Hugo de Garius, who wrote a book, I think in 98, called The Artilect Wars, where he predicted that there would be a conflict between cosmists, which are people that wanted to build AI, and the Terrans, who were the people that said, no, we're afraid of the conflicts. And the third party was cyborgs, who were people that wanted to enhance themselves to become like AI rather than risk being turned into obsolescence. So
interesting point.
Research. He was an AI researcher. He has a PhD in computer science, did a lot of stuff. He taught in Beijing for 10 years. He's retired probably back in 2010. But he did research on the use of genetic algorithms to evolve artificial neural networks using what they call the Cambrain, which was an algorithmic brain. And he predicted that the Cambrains are important because they would be able to be scalable indefinitely.
That's
so
amazing.
You could have these godlike intelligences. I'd like to know what thought is about Mr. And he's predicted this back in the 90s and 2010s, and now we're here 15 years in advance, and I'd like to know what you think about this guy, if you know about him.
Bob, thank you for your call. We're almost at the top of the hour here, so you have to take the answer off air. But Patrick, we'll wrap it up here. Bob was our last caller, but a great contributor. Listen to all the great information the people who out there are calling in. They're adding to the program and questions and comments. But your response to Bob?
You bet. I don't know that author in particular or that scientist, but I understand exactly what he's saying. Where we are today is, this is the product of all that research that's been done along the way, and it's getting scarier by the minute.
Patrick Wood, always a great guest. You'll continue as far as the different, responses that I get and questions I get in emails. That's the reason that we continue to have you. Obviously, you're most impressive with the information that you deliver to us. Technocracy.news is his website, ladies and gentlemen. Patrick, we look forward to doing this again. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't had your questions answered, you can certainly get in touch with Patrick, technocracy.news. And if you'd like to email me about future questions, maybe guests that you think you'd like to have, not guaranteeing that we'll get them all, but your suggestions are most welcome, drsky@wabcradio.com. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate your time. And we'll talk soon.
My pleasure.
And ladies and gentlemen, we now pass the torch to TJ McCormick for The Other Side of Midnight, another great host here on Talk Radio 77 WABC. And thanks to Bill and Tony navigating this starship as our helmsman. And we'll see you for the next iteration in less than 24 hours as we go to midnight, Saturday Eastern Daylight Time to 2 a.m., Sunday Eastern Daylight Time. Clear skies, health and happiness to all. This is where we sign off, but just temporarily. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Dr. Sky Experience. You can hear the Dr. Sky Experience Saturday mornings, midnight to 2 a.m. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
I'm here on the job site with Dale, who's a framing contractor.
Hey, good morning.
Dale traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance for all his business vehicles. We're here where he needs us most.
Yep, they sure are.
We make it easy for him to save on all his insurance needs, all in one place, with coverage that fits his business and bottom line. Oh, I shouldn't have looked down.
It's all right.
We're so far up here.
Look at me. Take a deep breath.
Oh, I'm good. So good.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. Get more with Geico.